Today, I'm going to talk about something that's going to sound a little bit like the Formula One competitions. At least it does for me because I've been watching that series on Netflix. What I'd like you to imagine is the very beginning, not of your life, but the absolute beginning of you. Hundreds of millions of competitors. A journey that would kill nearly all of them. A prize that could only be sense, not seen. And somewhere at the end of a road that seems impossible, sovereign, waiting, deciding, choosing. Now, this isn't an old school fairy tale. It is not a myth. That's exactly what happened inside of your mama's body, inside of my body when I was pregnant, before you existed. And today we're going to talk about what that means for all of us from a very particular angle. Y'all know how I do this, how I put everything on the table. And basically, it's for how we see women and how we see men, for why the world seems so fundamentally upside down. And we have to wonder what it would look like if we could go back to where it all started with its fundamental design. Now, hear me out. Hear me out. Welcome to Heaven on Earth. I'm your host, Claudia Cauterucci, and this is one of those episodes I've been thinking about for a long time because that's how I do it. I start to think of a topic and make connections, and then I just start writing notes and writing notes. I have my little note thing. I have paper everywhere. I'm one of those people where I'm just writing notes about a thought that I keep mulling over. So let's begin. But first, I want to thank everyone who's stuck with this show. Your presence here really means everything, not just for me, but for what we're trying to do. For those of you who are new to this podcast, I'm Claudia Cauterucci. I've been a psychotherapist for over 25 years, and I'm someone who can't look at something and wonder how it connects to other things. This show is not religious. It is psychological and spiritual, what I call psycho-spiritual. So we're not here to talk about doctrine at all. We focus and start with the human being. On each episode, I take a topic that is alive in the world right now. It's something you're already seeing, something you're already feeling, even if you don't know quite how to name it. And I study it from every angle. Biological, historical, psychological, spiritual. Like spokes on a wheel, it all leads to the same center. I have a signature approach and I call it the all is in the small and the small is in the all. And what that means is that whatever is happening inside of one human being is happening out there in humanity. We work from the inside out. We're not bypassing. We go all the way through. We do the ugly, the good, and the bad. I mean, shout out Clint Eastwood. The other day, I heard the quote by Casey Kasem. I'm definitely dating myself. Remember his quote? Keep your feet on the ground and keep reaching for the stars. And that's exactly what we do here on the Heaven on Earth podcast. We're building bridges and we're moving from what we are to what is possible. That's why I call it the portal to possibility. So let's jump right in and talk about the journey of the sperm. Let's go inside the human body. And I promise we're not going to do it like textbook style. No. We're just going to talk about what happens. Because once you hear this, you'll get to understand what happens with male energy and female energy. And you'll see why I'm addressing it exactly right now. But that comes later. So stick with me all the way through to the end. When sperm are released into the world, approximately 200 to 500 million of them begin a journey. Yeah, every time 200 to 500 million. That number is seriously almost incomprehensible. Like seriously, if you stacked 500 million pennies, you'd reach the moon. That is how many sperm begin the race when released. And what they're racing toward is one egg, one. And the journey is brutal. You should see these Formula One guys. It's like, bam, they're all like running. And that's what I kept thinking. I kept thinking about the release of the sperm. The journey is brutal. And the female body is not passively waiting, by the way. And this is what's not talked about more often. And I'm here to talk about it. The female body is actively filtering. The cervical environment is acidic. And what do you know? It's on purpose. The immune system treats the sperm as foreign invaders. The path is long, complex, and it is meant to eliminate. It's meant to. Out of 500 million sperm that begin, maybe 200 survive to reach the egg. That is a 99.99% elimination rate. Let's think about what that means. The masculine principle, in its most primal biological form, is meant to compete. It's meant to endure, to persevere, to persist, not to dominate, by the way, to earn. The sperm is not storming the egg, pillaging the egg, raping the egg. The sperm is presenting itself to the egg, and then it waits. So here's where we're going to start making the connection, because this is where biology becomes a form of philosophy. So scientists have discovered something extraordinary about when the survivors finally reach the egg. The egg is not passive. The egg actually releases certain chemical signals called chemoattractants. And through these signals, she literally beckons some sperm forward and she repels others. She's not waiting, she's curating. She is reading the genetic information that's being offered. It's like reading all the ingredients. She's assessing, she's seeing about compatibility, and she's ultimately making a selection. And it's all based on chemistry. It's not on a conscious thought. It's based on what's best for the life that's coming. The egg chooses. Now, hold on, stick with me, because we are going to apply it to today. When one is chosen, when she allows herself to open up to that one, she immediately closes her membrane. And that biological event is called a zona reaction. It actually seals her immediately. And that's done so that no one else can enter. No other sperm can enter because the decision has been made and it's final. One is chosen, hundreds of millions are rejected, and that's all by the egg's design, by the egg's intelligence, and by the egg's will. So in this process, the egg is on the throne and the sperm are all aspirants. But now let's move into scarcity, into lack, because this is where the story takes a twist. A woman is actually born with all the eggs that she will ever have. At birth, that's between and 2 million. She can never make more. By puberty, that number has fallen to about 300,000. It's a big decline. And across her entire fertile life, she will release approximately 400. From 1 million to 2 million. That's all, 400. Meanwhile, a man produces 1,500 sperm every second, every hour of every day of his reproductive life. In economics and in biology, scarcity equals value. Abundance creates competition. So basically, the masculine exists in abundant competition and it competes endlessly, urgently, desperately for access to something rare. Okay, are you following me? Are you getting Formula One? Are you getting every team sport that ever existed? Are you following me here? Just stick with me. It's for something rare. It's for something precious. It's for something that can't be replaced. That's what they're competing for. And that egg, that feminine, is a scarce resource. The masculine is the competing force. That, my loves, is the a priori blueprint. It's what we see getting played out in humanity all the time in many, many, many forms. So here's a question for you. If the feminine is sovereign, is scarce, is on the chosen throne, why does the world that we have built treat her as though she is the least powerful force in the room? Now, check it. The reason why I've been mulling this over biologically, because I needed the biological understanding of this more than the political or something that felt more cognitive. I needed it to go back to something that was much more primal to understand it better. Where did it break? How did it become the great inversion for real? So in order to know how we got here, we have to go back, right? Like in all good psychotherapy, we've got to do a little bit of time travel far back. So anthropologists and historians who studied pre-agricultural societies, societies before humans settled into farming and land ownership, for example, paint a very distinctive picture that for me was surprising. Many of the earliest human communities were formed around partnership, not around domination, actually. They document something that's quite remarkable in ancient cultures, in Mesopotamia, in Old Europe, across parts of Africa and the Americas. The divine was feminine. The primary sacred image was not the warrior king. It was a goddess form, a mother, a creator. Certainly this is true in India because creation was understood to be female. Life literally came through women. Life came through women. Life emerges in this mysterious way from the female body. And that was the original miracle. If we want more life, it comes through the female body. Communities would organize around honoring. So what happened? So about 10,000 years ago, with the start of the agricultural revolution, when humans stopped moving and started owning land, everything changed. Land could be inherited. Check it out. And if land could be passed to your children, then you need to know whose children are yours. And to make sure whose children are yours, they had to start dominating. They had to make sure that their inheritance was safe. And in order to do that, what was required was the control of women. And this is the moment documented across cultures, across countries, when the feminine stopped being seen as sacred, as the sacred sovereign, and became property. Virginity stopped being a personal right. It actually became an economic asset owned by the father. It's just economics, right? This is where a bride price or a dowry became the currency. This was a transaction. So her body stopped being a throne. It became territory, and territory that you could sell, all economics. So every system that followed that, whether it's religious, social, political, legal, was built to maintain that inversion. What was worshipped, what was honored became controlled. It became owned. What was chosen became taken. There was a high price for these women. So this is very complex. I'm not meaning to simplify anything. It was just a way for me to understand, and I'll share with you at the end why. There were exceptions. There were cultures that maintained the balance, and they still exist, where a woman was not property, continued to be her sovereign self. But the dominant pattern, and we know this across agricultural civilizations that basically came to shape most of the world, right, followed the same arc. Women's bodies became quite a commodity, and we're still living inside of that arc. So legal systems have spent centuries seeing women as legal non-persons. We see it in religious traditions that code women's sexuality as dangerous. They must be covered, they must be controlled. They're sinful. We see it in cultures where women are still sold, they're traded, they're controlled because they are vessels for what? For male lineage. So interesting when we break it down, isn't it? So a sexually active man is celebrated, and a sexually active woman has been shamed. Same biology, but opposite social meaning. So, what's the fear? And how does that fear affect power? Now, stick with me because we are leading to stuff that's in the news today. It's right there. That's why I felt it was time to talk about it in the way that I've been mulling it over for a long time. And it might get uncomfortable, but this is the most important part. Why? Why? Why would a group of people, any civilization, look at the source of all life and decide to dominate it instead of honor it? I mean, I'm thinking of planet Earth too. What I'm saying is there's so many ways that this shows up. Planet Earth, our water systems, oil. Why? Why would we stop honoring what gives us life and dominate it? Fear, and not just any fear, a very specific, very ancient, very primal fear. A priori, it goes back. The fear of the one thing you cannot do. Because when we feel that we cannot do something, we fear. We actually feel impoverished. When we feel like we don't know and we don't know how, we feel impoverished. Talk about that in the Empath Leader book. So, if we go back to the sperm and the egg, men cannot create life from their bodies. That capacity, the capacity to actually grow a human being, to be the bridge between what doesn't exist yet, right? Like the quantum field, and bring it into what actually exists, because that's what's happening. It doesn't exist. It goes through the female body and then it is embodied. It exists. It's quite magical and mysterious and miraculous. And that lives entirely inside the power to create, and not strength, not money, not intelligence, not power can change that. And on some deep nonverbal level, that's scary AF, because power at its most insecure, talk about this when it comes to the narcissist all the time, cannot tolerate something it cannot possess or replicate. Do you see how it's all coming together? Everything that I talk about? The narcissist only needs to dominate because they have fear and feel powerless. They can't do certain things, so they either mimic it or dominate it. So it tries to contain it, control it, diminish it, rename it as weakness. And in some ways, in an odd way, sort of ironic, the actual evidence of the prowess, I like to call it prowess more, of the feminine is that for centuries, the world has tried to control it so much. It must be dangerous, right? You're trying to keep it down. So if we go back to biology, think of what it means that the biological design for masculine energy is to compete, to present itself, to be evaluated, and to be found as worthy of companionship, of compatibility, or not, by a sovereign feminine. And what sovereign means is the ability to choose your own preferences and desires. And that goes from a person all the way to a nation. You have the sovereign right to choose how you want to run your stuff. So if we go by that blueprint, if we go by that design, rejection is possible. Inadequacy is possible. The masculine is, in biological terms, genuinely vulnerable to the judgment of the feminine. The masculine is vulnerable in many ways, and I'm going to talk about it more in a second. So keep holding on. Just follow this. Just follow this without judgment, because we're just talking about the biology of the human being. So what do unhealed, unexamined versions of any psyche do with vulnerability? They armor against it. They strike first. They strike first. Are you starting to feel some waves of the current zeitgeist? They take power by force rather than risk the humiliation of being deemed unworthy. This isn't strength. It is an actual wound that armed itself. It is the rejected sperm that, when faced with its own redundancy, right? Who's to blame? Cannot tolerate it, cannot tolerate not being chosen. So, what does it do? It snatches choice away, it removes choice from others. You following me here? And here is where it's not just philosophical, it's urgent and it's real. The access point to the feminine, her body, her sexuality, the threshold of her womb, basically her creative, sacred technology was designed by nature to be protected. It is a sacred gate of all biology because what comes through it is a human being. The vulnerability of that access point wasn't meant to be a weakness to exploit. So the female is not weak because she can be violated through force and dominance. She is sovereign because she holds the power to create. Those are two entirely different sentences. And the confusion between them is a human tragedy throughout history, throughout civilizations. She was not meant to be pillaged. She was made to be protected because what she carries is the future itself. So, how does this show up? In our bedrooms, in social gatherings, in battlefields. So, let's bring it out from these biological philosophizing into what's happening, into what's real. It's live today. The distortion that we've been tracing, the inversion of this original blueprint lives in the news, lives in documents being exposed, lives in our relationships, lives in the dating scene, lives in our workplaces and our culture. It lives in the stories that we tell about what men are for and what women are for. It lives when a dominant masculine authority figure demeans and takes away power from another masculine. And so the only way to keep translating this dominance and power is to then dominant women. It lives in that statistically 1 of 3 women, 1 of 3, y'all, will experience physical or sexual violence in her lifetime. Not because men are inherently violent, by the way, but it's because civilizations that have trained, cultures that have trained masculinity towards domination instead of like worthy competition produces men who don't know how to earn, only how to take. Yep. They're not competing. They don't feel good enough about themselves. They're dominating to steal, to take, to control. It lives in boardrooms. It lives in beauty standards that tell women that they are worthy if they're chosen, but not in their choosing. Do you see how inverted where did it all turned around? The biological script has been flipped completely, and it makes women the eager competitors and men the judges. And this is what's happening on the dating scene today. You can't look at advertising, at the files without seeing this inversion playing all the time. It teaches women to withstand, to crave, to demean themselves in order to be chosen instead of being the choosers. Even in sexual language, right? What's the language? We score, we get, we take, we drug. We drug women to have sex with us. We have them drink. That is not domination, y'all. That is straight up cowardice. It's alive in child marriages all over the world. It's alive in global trafficking. Female bodies are there to be extracted. And every system that controls women is actually hiding the great fear of what they're here to do, which is to create, to be creators of life. But check it out. Check it out. Listen to this. Men also wounded by this type of system, by these types of patterns. Profoundly. Culture that teaches men that their only power is through dominance, that if they're emotional, they're weak, that vulnerability is failing, so they hide behind pride with tons of immune diseases, toxic behaviors, addictions, that worth is only measured by conquest. These men are cut off from their full humanity. There's a great injury here to little boys, to teenage boys, to men, to fathers, to brothers, to uncles. Think about it, the sperm that competes with integrity, that strives honestly, that presents itself fully. That is healthy masculine energy. It knows its purpose. It knows its design. It has direction. It doesn't stop. It persists. It perseveres. It knows what it wants. There's no sore losing. I mean, right now I'm fixated on Formula One because I'm watching it. I mean, there's winners and losers all the time in any sport. And you don't go into the locker rooms and machine gun them down. You accept the sport. So the masculine that wasn't taught to compete with integrity, only to take, is lost. It has been robbed. Masculines have been robbed by the wisdom of their own biology, just as women have been robbed of theirs. Both are wounded, both lose. In fact, sometimes when I'm talking to men, I say, don't give away your sperm so easily. These are your treasures. These are your competitors. Because that's not just for women. I believe that of men. Sperm is your treasure. What are you doing with it? But we don't teach our little boys that. How do you treat yourself? Honor your own biology when both are losing. This is what distorted power always produces. It produces loss, great loss. We see it in war, we see it in the files. So, what does this a priori blueprint actually call us to do? What would it look like if we went back to our original design? Remember how I talk about like shifting the humanity's algorithm? Well, this is part of it. How do we begin to shift this human algorithm right now? 2026. That's why I'm talking about this. Not so we go backward, because that's not what we're wanting to go back to. Although there's all types of forces in the world that keep wanting us to go back to the way things have been. But they're not realizing not the way that things were meant to be. A priori, biologically, all we have to do is follow nature. The destination, y'all, is what we build from here on with eyes open. And what if we start with the egg? The egg is a metaphor of the feminine principle in every culture, every relationship, every person. The sovereignty, the sovereign egg, the part that chooses. Remember my phrase, the freest human is the choosing human. For me, that's true sovereignty. The part that holds what is rare, what is irreplaceable and precious. Yeah, I'm talking to you, men or women, or whoever you are, human. I'm talking to your curating self. So now I want to go back. What if we taught little girls that they were sovereign, that they were the choosers of their life, that she gets to choose what fits her body, her time, her energy, her love, her glee. Have you ever seen a woman in love? Have you ever seen a gleeful, excited little girl? That's irreplaceable. It's irreplaceable. It's treasure. And what would the world look like if we taught little boys from the very beginning that their world isn't to take, isn't to dominate, but it's to love themselves, to feel worthy, that their power is in their striving, that their dignity is in their offering, that they are in the most elemental, primal, biological sense in service to something greater, than themselves? What if we raise boys to compete well, to acknowledge their urge for competition, and to shake hands at the end? It's so funny when I'm thinking of all of this and I'm watching this Formula One series. At the end, what do? They step on the podium. There's a number one, a number two, a number three. The Olympics does the same thing. And then they shake this champagne bottle and they spray it. Yeah, they spray it. This is all biologically based. The egg doesn't resent the sperm for competing. The competition is how it finds what's truly compatible. The competition serves the outcome. The healthy masculine doesn't resent the feminine for being selective. The selectivity is what makes the union meaning to be chosen out of millions. It's glorious. It's not humiliating. And everyone gets the rules of the game. This is where no's are important, where yeses are important. These are sacred words. I get to say yes and I get to say no. This is why rape in any form, it's not just a crime against one person. It is a crime against the blueprint itself. It is an actual assault on the very mechanism that makes life possible. This is why in times of war, the first thing they do is pillage and rape, including the children, including the boys, because then the domination is complete. The boy will lose his ability to compete out of fear. They've been dominated. None of this is political, my loves. It is humanity that took a wrong turn way back. And these types of conversations are begging for us to just come back to our a priori selves. So let me close the podcast with something I want you to reflect upon this week. So the world that we were born into, that you were born into, did not inherit the original script, the one that I'm talking about today. It inherited a distortion, a pretty severe one, a completely inverted one that has been running for years and years and years and has transformed itself into sex trafficking. It's transformed itself into political dominance, into war, into torture, and it's been passed down through law, through religion, through culture, and through silence. But the original script still exists. It's in your cells. It's in the first moments of your life, before you had words, before you had memory, before you had identity. You are the result of a competition, of a selection, of an opening. You are the continuation of human life. This is what at stake when we dishonor the feminine, when we dishonor children feminine. This is what at stake when we weaponize masculine energy instead of directing it toward worthy competition. That's what at stake in every culture, every home, every ancestral lineage. This is what happens when our relationships get it backwards. We are broken by distortion. And what can be distorted can go back, can heal, can course correct. That's what heaven on earth, that is my whole mission, right? Is to shift this human algorithm. And remember, I talk about it like it's when I talk about awakening, I actually mean remembering who we truly are, who we're meant to be, how we've all been wounded through this inversion. In the next episode, I'm going to go even deeper. And we're going to talk about children and why the most vulnerable amongst us have been across human history the first target of systems, right? If you could get the first layer of children, because there's a saying, give me the child and I'll show you the man. And it cuts both ways. Give me a child who has been protected and honored, and I'll show you an adult who knows their worth. All my content leads here, whether it's psychotherapeutically, biologically, psychologically. We are here to find not only the self-worth and self-love as ourselves as humans, we're here to do it as a new, rediscovered humanity. Give me a child who has been broken, who has been controlled, dominated, and I'll show you a whole generation of wounds that are walking upright. We'll explore that. We'll explore anthropology, baby anthropology, as I say, baby psychology, and for what it all means for us to rebuild right now in 2026 as we see these systems of war, domination, force, control, containment, trying to hold on hard. Until then, think about what you want to protect, including in yourself. What do you want to hold as sacred in each other, in the children around you? Think about that. Thank you for being here. We just kicked off season 4 of the Heaven on Earth podcast, a portal to possibility.